So, up on the board, I have the 8 questions from page 194 up here, and I'm just going to kind of talk through how you would solve them, because I know you guys are on your own, and it's, it can be really overwhelming trying to solve math and go through math textbook pages completely on your own. So I kind of want to give you guys some guidance here and hopefully help you out. So, on the previous pages, 192 and 193, you should have read about the different angle relationships you can have when you have two parallel lines, like these two right here, cut by a transversal. Now, in this picture right here I have, these are my two parallel lines. This line right here is a transversal. It's just a line that intersects it. This line right here is a transversal, another line that intersects these two parallel lines. So there's a lot of different angular relationships I have here. One of those possible relationships I may have is corresponding angles. So what that means is when I have a transversal that cuts two parallel lines, these angles are in the same location as one another. So let's just say, for example, I take angle C down here. I put a blue dot. There we go. Put a blue dot there. Okay. If I look where angle C is located, where these two lines intersect, it is located on the top right. Okay. Now, as I follow this transversal, and I'm going to ignore the other transversal right here, I follow it up here, and I see where it intersects this other parallel line. The angle that's going to correspond to this one I put in blue is this 65-degree angle that is in the same location. It's in the top right. So again, I'm completely ignoring that second transversal to come up with those two corresponding angles I have right there. Okay? So that's one angle relationship. Another angle relationship is alternate interior angles. So whenever you see the word alternate, they're on opposite sides of the transversal. Now, interior means that they are in between the two parallel lines. So what do I mean by that? I have two parallel lines right here, okay? So I'm looking at the angles that are in between these two. So BA, this angle that doesn't have anything to identify it, C, are all in between these parallel lines. So I'm looking for a pair of alternate interior. That would be like angle C, so I'll put a green dot now, and angle B. They're alternate interior. They're opposite sides of the transversal, okay? And they're inside the two parallel lines. Now, corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, they're congruent, okay? So, if you guys are, some of you may be thinking, technically, we know what CB are, how many degrees, okay? The other two types of angles you're going to see is alternate exterior angles, okay? Same type of angles, or a very similar type of angles to alternate interior, opposite sides of the transversal. But see these two parallel lines? They're on the outside now. So again, if I ignore this other transversal, I need to come up with more colors here. But anyway, I ignore this other transversal here. Okay. An example of alternate exterior angles would be this angle right here and this angle right here that I had in blue. Those are alternate exterior. The last type of angles, and this is the only one where they're not congruent to each other, is same side interior angles or consecutive interior angles. So we're going to see this is like angle B right here and this angle right here. Those are consecutive interior angles. All right, so now that we've talked about all these relationships, let's go through how you can find the measures of these angles the book is asking you to do on 194. So the measure of angle A. All right. Angle A is right here. Okay. If you look directly across from angle A, you see 55 degrees. These are vertical angles. Vertical angles are when you have two lines that intersect, and they're the angles directly across from each other. So this means that if this angle is 55 up here, this angle down here must also be 55 degrees. So I know that has to be true. So answer A, hopefully you get 55, or you should have gotten 55. For B, all right, let's look where B is at. B is right there. So we know a couple things about B, right? It is alternate interior with C. Also, B is a vertical angle from the angle that is 65. So, based off that relationship, I know that one has to be 65 degrees. Angle C. All right, this one we're going to have to think about for a second. It's down here. I have a blue dot here. I have a blue dot up there. Do you remember earlier I said those two were consecutive angles? Or not consecutive, corresponding angles, I mean. Those are corresponding. They're in the same location, so they're congruent. So this one is 65. This one must be 65. All right. So there's the first three. How are we doing so far? Hopefully we're starting to make some sense. All right. So measure of angle D. All right. This one's we're going to have to think a little bit, because before we were looking at relationships between that transversal and those two parallel lines. Now we got to look at this transversal over here. So let's take a look at what we know about angle D. So what personally stands out to me, and I do not have another color for this, is angle D right here is an alternate interior angle to this angle right here. So they are inside the parallel lines. They're opposite sides of the transversal, so they must be congruent. So this would also be 60. Now, I know for 6 and 7, we have to find the measure, and then it says come up with another way to do it. So the measure of angle E. So when I'm looking at the measure of angle E, I know that angle D has to be 60, right? Because we just said that. Well, D and E are a linear pair. Now, what's a linear pair mean? They make a straight line. They make a straight line, they have to add up to be 180 degrees. So, if I take 180 minus 60, that means this has to be 120 degrees. So the measure of angle E has to be 120 degrees. Oh, that was the other way. So it says in the book, use same side interior. So that means you would look at this angle up here and this angle down here, and know they have to add up to be 180. If you do 180 minus 60, you get 120. So I actually did the other way first before I did the way that book said to do to start with. And then we have the measure of angle F. Use corresponding angles. So look where angle F is located. Okay, it's located on the bottom right corner. So this is going to correspond with this transversal intersects this parallel line, the angle that's on the bottom right corner right here. So if this one's 60, this one also is 60. Now, the other way that you could have come up with this, and honestly, there's a couple different things you could have done. One thing is you knew E is 120. Okay, these make a linear pair. 120 minus 60, sorry, 180 minus 120 is 60. So you could have gotten that way. Or D and F, or vertical angles, so they are congruent to each other. Okay, so hopefully that kind of helps you guys with 2 through 7. Now, I'm also going to go through 8 on this page, and maybe you guys can give me a little feedback if you think this was helpful, or if you don't think this was helpful, or maybe just let me know if it's helpful, and if I continue to maybe post some videos if it would be beneficial. So for number 8, 3 reasons angle 1 and angle 7 are congruent. Alright, so let's put green dots on 1 and 7. So for angle 1 and angle 7, the first thing I personally notice, now keep in mind the question tells you that P and Q, which are these two lines are congruent. Okay? Congruent, parallel. These two lines are parallel. So the first thing I notice is this is my transversal. These two are on opposite sides, all right? So they're alternate. Now, are they on the inside of the two parallel lines or the outside of the two parallel lines? Hopefully, you guys are noticing they are on the inside. So alternate interior angles. So that's one way you can prove those two are congruent. Now we got to come up with at least 2 others, all right? So they're alternate interior. Now, something else you guys could think about. If you look at angle 1 and angle 5, right? Those are corresponding. 5 and 7 are vertical. So angle 1, angle 5 are corresponding. See, they're both in the same location, right? They're both in the top right. Now, those 2 angles that are corresponding, we know 5 and 7 are congruent right here. So that is another way to show those 2 angles are congruent. So angle 1, angle 5 are corresponding angles. And angle 5 is congruent to angle 7 because of vertical angles. So that's another way you could say those 2 are congruent. Something else you can think about is angle 1 and 7 are going to be supplementary to the same angle, angle 2. Okay. So those have to be congruent. So what do they mean by that? So angle 2 and angle 7, these are same side interior. Okay. So they add up to be 180. Now, angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair. So they add up to be 180. So whatever angle 2 is, if I subtract from 180, I'm going to get what 7 is. So let's say angle 2 is 100 degrees, just for an example. I take 100 degrees and subtract it from 180. Angle 7 has to be 80 degrees. Okay? The angle 2 is still 100 degrees. I take 100 degrees and subtract it from 180. I will get 80 degrees for angle 1 also. So that is a third way. So angle 1, angle 7 are supplementary to the same angle to angle 2, so angle 1 must be congruent to angle 7. Alright, so these are the 3 ways, and now I see that my writing was a little cut off. So these are the 3 reasons those 2 angles are congruent, or 3 ways we can show they are congruent. Alright, I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you watch it and if you thought it was helpful. Alright, thank you, and I hope you guys are all taking care and staying safe.